All right, so we're diving into Good to Great by Jim Collins. You've got some serious ambitions, wanting to understand what takes a company from good to, truly exceptional. And we're here to help you unpack all that wisdom packed into this book.
Yeah, it's a classic for a reason.
Totally. But right off the bat, Collins throws us a curveball, almost a paradox. He points out that many of the truly great companies, like Hewlett-Packard, were actually great from the get-go. So where does that leave us? Can a good company, one that's maybe plateaued or struggling to reach its full potential, can they actually make the leap to greatness?
That's the central question that's driving Collins' research. And to answer it, he studied 11 companies that did just that made the jump from good to great, crushing the market with stock performance that, get this, beat the average by nearly 7 times over 15 years. We're not talking about just a lucky streak here, but sustained, remarkable performance.
Okay, so these weren't just flashes in the pan. But here's where it gets really interesting. We might assume that these companies were led by, larger-than-life CEOs, the kind of rock star personalities we see splashed across magazine covers, right?
Right.
But Collins found something completely different.
Yeah, most of the CEOs who led these companies to greatness weren't flashy outsiders. They weren't brought in to shake things up. They came from within the company, often quiet, unassuming individuals. And it wasn't about massive executive compensation packages either. Collins found no correlation between sky-high CEO pay and a company's leap to greatness.
So it's not about the charismatic leader or the big paycheck. What is it then? What's the secret sauce?
Collins calls it level 5 leadership, and it's this fascinating blend of personal humility and unwavering professional will.
Oh.
These leaders are driven by a deep sense of purpose, a commitment to building something truly great that transcends their own ego or their own ambition.
Hold on. Humility and intense will. Those seem like kind of contradictory qualities. How does that work in practice?
Think of it like this. These leaders aren't afraid to make tough decisions, even if those decisions mean challenging the status quo or going against conventional wisdom. But they do it with this quiet determination, a focus on the greater good of the company, rather than their own personal gain or recognition.
It's making me think of Darwin Smith at Kimberly-Clark. Not exactly a household name, but he made this incredibly bold move, selling off their core business, paper mills, even the one in their namesake town, to focus on consumer goods.
Exactly. That's level 5 leadership in action. A leader who's not afraid to dismantle the very foundation of the company if it means pursuing a path to greatness. It's a stark contrast to companies like Rubbermaid, which soared under this charismatic CEO, only to falter when he departed. They were built around one person's brilliance instead of a sustainable system.
Okay, so level 5 leadership is crucial, but it's not the whole story, right? There's got to be more to it. What else did these good to great companies do differently?
Well, they shared a remarkable willingness to confront the brutal facts of their reality. They didn't sugarcoat things or shy away from difficult truths. Instead, they used those brutal facts as fuel for making better decisions.
So no rose-colored glasses here. But how does that play out in a company? Can you give us an example?
Absolutely. Collins tells this compelling story about 2 old grocery chains, A&P and Kroger, both facing a changing market back in the 1970s. Kroger adapted and thrived, while A&P, despite having glimpses of the future and their own golden key experiment, essentially stuck their heads in the sand.
It's like they knew the answers, but were too attached to the old ways of doing things.
Exactly. They were clinging to the past instead of confronting the reality of the changing landscape. And this brings us to another important point: creating a climate where the truth is heard.
Okay, so how do you build a culture where people feel safe speaking up, even when the truth is uncomfortable?
Collins highlights 4 key practices. First, leading with questions, not answers. Think of Alan Wurtzel at Circuit City. When he took over the company, he didn't come in with all the answers. He relentlessly asked questions, probing and pushing, until he truly understood the situation.
That's interesting. We often expect leaders to have all the answers, but maybe it's more about fostering a culture of curiosity and critical thinking. What are the other practices?
Second, engaging in debate, but doing so in a way that's productive, not destructive. It's about challenging assumptions and exploring different perspectives without letting it devolve into personal attacks.
So healthy debate, not just arguing for the sake of arguing.
Right. Third, conducting blameless autopsies when things go wrong, like Philip Morris after their 7UP fiasco. It's not about pointing fingers, but about learning from mistakes and figuring out how to prevent them in the future.
I like that embracing failure as a learning opportunity. What's the fourth practice?
Using red flag mechanisms to highlight critical issues, Collins actually used a version of this in his own classroom at Stanford, giving each student a literal red flag to raise when something seemed off. It makes it impossible to ignore those crucial pieces of information that might otherwise get swept under the rug.
Yeah, brilliant. So simple, yet so effective. But how does this apply to a business setting?
Take Granorock, for example. They have a short pay policy where customers can decide how much to pay on an invoice based on their level of satisfaction. Talk about putting your money where your mouth is.
Wow, that's a powerful way to ensure that customer feedback is taken seriously. It's about turning information into action, not just collecting it and letting it gather dust. So we've got level 5 leadership, confronting brutal facts, and creating a climate where the truth is heard. But how do these companies actually figure out where to focus their energy? How do they decide what to pursue and what to let go of?
That's where the hedgehog concept comes in. And this is where things clicked for me when I first read the book. It's about finding that sweet spot where a company can be the best at something, not just good at it.
So it's not about trying to be everything to everyone.
Exactly. It's about focusing your energy on what you can truly excel at, your unique area of expertise. Collins uses Walgreens as a perfect example. They were laser focused on becoming the best at convenient drugstores, relentlessly increasing profit per customer visit. Their competitor, Eckerd, lacked this focus, spreading themselves too thin by acquiring everything from candy companies to security services. No clear direction, no hedgehog.
And Walgreens, with their simple yet powerful hedgehog concept, blew past Eckerd. But this isn't just for companies, right? This idea of finding your hedgehog concept feels applicable to individuals, too.
Absolutely. Collins encourages everyone, even if you're not running a Fortune 500 company, to think about your own 3 circles.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What are these 3 circles?
The first circle is about what you can be the best in the world at. What are your unique strengths? What are you naturally gifted at? The second circle focuses on what drives your economic engine. What are the key factors that determine your success, whether that's financial profit, social impact, or something else entirely? And finally, the third circle is all about passion. What are you truly passionate about? What gets you out of bed in the morning, excited to tackle the day?
So the sweet spot is where those 3 circles overlap.
Precisely.
Yeah.
That's your hedgehog concept, your guiding principle for making decisions and allocating your time and energy. It's about aligning your efforts with what you can truly excel at and what gives you a sense of purpose.
This is powerful stuff. It's not just about finding your passion. It's about finding your passion that you can actually be the best at, and that makes a real difference in the world.
Exactly. It's about finding that sweet spot where your talents, your economic engine, and your passion all come together. And Collins provides some great examples of how companies discovered their hedgehog concepts. From Fannie Mae's focus on profit per mortgage risk level to Walgreens' profit per customer visit. It's about identifying that key metric that drives success.
All right, so we've got level 5 leaders confronting brutal facts and the hedgehog concept. But isn't there a danger in getting too focused? What about the need to adapt and evolve to stay ahead of the curve?
That's a great question, and it brings us to another key concept from good to great, a culture of discipline. These companies weren't just about setting big, hairy, audacious goals. They were about creating a culture where disciplined people took disciplined action based on disciplined thought.
Okay, that sounds pretty intense. Can you break that down a bit? What does a culture of discipline actually look like in practice?
Think about it like this. It's about making sure that even the smallest actions contribute to the bigger goal. Collins tells this great anecdote about Dave Scott, the Ironman triathlete, and his almost fanatical attention to detail, even rinsing his cottage cheese to ensure optimal nutrition. It sounds extreme, but it highlights the level of commitment and discipline that drives exceptional performance.
Wow, rinsing cottage cheese, that's dedication.
Mhm.
But how do you translate that kind of discipline to a company-wide level?
It's about creating a culture where discipline is valued and practiced at every level of the organization. It's about having clear systems and processes, but also about empowering people to take ownership and make decisions within those systems.
So it's not about micromanaging every little detail.
Not at all. It's about setting clear expectations, providing the right tools and training, and then trusting people to do their best work.
All right, so we've got disciplined people, a clear hedgehog concept, and level 5 leaders guiding the way. But what about technology? Surely that's a key ingredient in building a good to great company in today's world.
That's another common misconception that Collins debunks. Good to great companies aren't afraid of technology, but they're incredibly selective about which technologies they embrace. They make sure that the technology fits their hedgehog concept, that it helps them become even better at what they're already great at.
So it's not about chasing every shiny new gadget or software program.
Right. It's about using technology strategically to enhance your existing strengths and accelerate your progress towards your hedgehog concept.
Can you give us an example?
Think about Kroger's early adoption of barcode scanners. It wasn't flashy or revolutionary at the time, but it dramatically improved their efficiency and allowed them to reinvest in their stores.
It's a great example of using technology to do what you're already good at even better.
Exactly. And it's a stark contrast to the technology trap, where companies chase every new trend without a clear purpose, often ending up scattered and ineffective.
So technology is a tool, not a driver. It's about using it strategically to support your overall goals, not letting it dictate your direction.
Precisely. And that brings us to another important concept, the flywheel and the doom loop. Good to great companies build momentum slowly and steadily, like pushing a giant flywheel. They don't look for overnight miracles.
So it's about consistent, sustained effort over time.
Exactly. Think of it like a snowball rolling downhill. It starts small, but as it gathers momentum, it becomes unstoppable. Comparison companies, on the other hand, often get caught in the doom loop. New program, new leader, disappointing results, repeat. It's a recipe for frustration and ultimately undermines their ability to achieve sustained greatness.
So it's the difference between a slow, steady climb and a series of erratic jumps and dips.
Precisely. The flywheel represents consistent, focused effort that builds upon itself, while the doom loop is all about chasing quick fixes and changing course too frequently.
You know, this is making me think about something Collins mentioned about Good to Great being a prequel to his earlier work, Built to Last.
Hmm.
Can you elaborate on that connection?
Absolutely. Good to Great is about achieving sustained great results, while Built to Last focuses on building an enduring institution.
So Good to Great gets you to greatness, and then Built to Last helps you stay there.
Precisely. And both books emphasize the importance of something Collins calls core ideology, the company's enduring values and purpose that go beyond just making money.
Kind of like Merck's development and free distribution of a cure for river blindness, right?
Yeah.
They were driven by a deeper purpose than just profit.
Exactly. It's about having a deeper sense of purpose that guides your decisions and actions, a purpose that transcends the pursuit of profit alone. And this core ideology is often what separates good to great companies from simply good companies. It gives them a sense of direction and a reason for being that goes beyond the bottom line.
This is fascinating stuff, and I'm already starting to see how these concepts could apply not just to companies, but to individuals, too.
Absolutely. These principles are universal. Anyone who wants to achieve sustained greatness, whether in their personal or professional lives, can learn from the insights in Good to Great. Welcome back to our deep dive into Good to Great. You know, before we jumped into the break, we were talking about the flywheel effect and how it builds momentum over time,
Right.
helping companies make that transition from good to great.
Right, and how those comparison companies often get stuck in that doom loop, always changing, never gaining any real traction. It makes me wonder, is there a way to predict if a company's on the path to greatness or headed for, a crash landing?
Yeah, that's one of the fascinating things about Collins' research is that he found that the good to great companies, they rarely had like a single defining moment of transformation. You know what I mean? There
Mhm.
wasn't some like grand announcement or a radical restructuring that magically flipped a switch.
Right.
They didn't rely on some silver bullet. Instead, they focused on getting the right people on the bus, confronting those brutal facts that we talked about earlier, and finding their hedgehog concept.
So no fireworks, just focused, disciplined effort over time. It sounds almost too simple, but I guess that's the point, right? It's not about complexity, it's about consistency.
Exactly. And it's important to remember that even for these good to great companies, the journey wasn't always smooth sailing. They faced challenges and setbacks along the way. Take Fannie Mae, for example. They were on the brink of collapse back in the early 1980s. Interest rates were fluctuating wildly, and many analysts believed the company was doomed.
But they didn't give up, did they?
No, they didn't. Instead of panicking or trying to find a quick fix, they used the crisis as an opportunity to remake Fannie Mae into a truly great company. David Maxwell, the CEO at the time, he rallied his team and he said, we're going to use this calamity. I mean, that's a pretty strong word, right?
Wow.
We're going to use this calamity as an opportunity to remake Fannie Mae into a great company.
It's amazing how a crisis can sometimes be the catalyst for real transformation. It forces you to confront those brutal facts and make the tough decisions that you might otherwise avoid.
Absolutely. And the Fannie Mae story also highlights another important concept that Collins calls the Stockdale paradox,
Okay.
named after Admiral James Stockdale, who was a prisoner of war in Vietnam for 7 years.
He endured unimaginable hardship. How did he survive?
When asked how he survived, Stockdale said, "I never doubted not only that I would get out, but also that I would prevail in the end and turn the experience into the defining event of my life, which, in retrospect, I would not trade."
Wow, that's powerful.
It is, and Collins applies this paradox to the good to great companies. They all maintained an unwavering belief that they would not just survive, but prevail as great companies, even in the face of adversity.
So it's about balancing faith with realism, believing in your ultimate success while still acknowledging like the harsh realities of your current situation.
Exactly. It's about having that unshakable faith that you will eventually prevail while also being brutally honest with yourself about the challenges you face.
Yeah, that makes sense. So we've got the right people on the bus, a clear hedgehog concept, disciplined action, and unwavering faith. What else can we learn from these good to great companies? What other insights did Collins uncover?
Well, one of the most striking findings is that they didn't focus on motivating their people.
Wait, really? That seems counterintuitive. Don't all companies want to motivate their employees?
You would think so, but the good to great companies assumed that the right people would be self-motivated. They understood that true motivation comes from within. So instead of trying to pump people up with external incentives or like rah-rah speeches, they focused on creating a culture that didn't demotivate people.
Interesting. So it's more about removing obstacles and creating an environment where people can, thrive.
Precisely. They understood that bureaucracy and hierarchy can stifle creativity and innovation. They recognized that setting unrealistic expectations or hiding the truth can be incredibly demoralizing.
Collins uses the example of George Rathman, who co-founded the biotechnology company Amgen, right?
Yes, he understood that bureaucracy was often a way to compensate for incompetence and lack of discipline. So he focused on hiring the right people and creating a culture of discipline instead of relying on, rules and regulations.
And it worked. Amgen became one of the few biotechnology companies to achieve sustained profitability and growth.
It's a powerful example of how a focus on people and culture can drive those extraordinary results.
It's fascinating how all of these concepts are interconnected, right? You can't have a culture of discipline without first getting the right people on the bus.
Yeah.
And you can't confront brutal facts if you're afraid to ask tough questions or challenge the status quo.
That's one of the things that makes Good to Great so compelling. It's not just a collection of random tips and tricks. It's a holistic framework that helps us understand this complex interplay of factors that drive sustained success.
And it's not just for businesses either, is it? These principles can be applied to any organization, from schools to nonprofits to government agencies.
Absolutely. Anyone who wants to build a great organization, no matter what their field or industry is, can learn from the insights in Good to Great.
So how do we take all of this and apply it to our own lives? What are some practical takeaways from Collins' research?
Well, first and foremost, it's about asking ourselves those tough questions. What are we truly passionate about? What can we be the best in the world at? What drives our economic engine? What are our core values, and how do they guide our decisions?
And then it's about having the discipline to follow through, to take consistent action, and to never give up on our goals, even when the going gets tough.
Exactly. It's about embracing the Stockdale paradox, confronting the brutal facts of our current reality, while maintaining an unwavering belief in our ability to prevail in the end. It's about building a flywheel, one small step at a time, and avoiding the doom loop of constant change and distraction.
It's about surrounding ourselves with the right people, those who share our values and who are committed to the same journey.
Right, it's about building a team that supports and challenges us, that helps us grow and achieve our full potential.
So it's not about finding a magic formula or a quick fix. It's about a commitment to continuous improvement, a relentless pursuit of excellence, and a deep belief in the power of disciplined thought and action.
Precisely. It's about embracing the journey, the challenges, and the triumphs, and never settling for anything less than greatness.
We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive into Good to Great. We've explored the key concepts of Level 5 leadership, confronting brutal facts, the hedgehog concept, a culture of discipline, the role of technology, and the importance of unwavering faith. We've also touched upon the connection between Good to Great and Built to Last, and how these principles can be applied to any organization or individual who aspires to greatness.
But there's one more important question that Collins raises in the book. A question that goes beyond, the pursuit of success and achievement. A question that really gets to the heart of why we do what we do.
And that question is, why greatness? Why strive for greatness when mediocrity is so much easier and less demanding? What's the point of pushing ourselves to the limit, of facing those brutal facts, of constantly seeking improvement?
These are profound questions that we'll explore in the final part of our deep dive. We'll delve into the deeper meaning behind the pursuit of greatness and discover how it can not only transform organizations, but also, really enrich our own lives.
Stay tuned, because the journey to greatness is far from over.
Welcome back. It's the final part of our deep dive into good to great. We spent a lot of time unpacking, the hey W of achieving greatness.
Right.
But as you just mentioned, there's this even bigger question kind of lurking in the background, the WHY. Why bother with all this effort? Why not just settle for, good enough? It's a question that Collins doesn't shy away from. He pushes us to consider the purpose behind our pursuit of greatness. He tells this interesting story about a guy named Sina Samantab, who runs a building, an old school house, actually, that Collins describes as a truly great institution.
So greatness doesn't have to be about massive scale or global impact. It can be about creating something exceptional on a smaller, more, intimate level.
Exactly. It's about making a positive impact on the people that you touch, no matter how big or small your sphere of influence is.
I'm also reminded of the story Collins shares about a high school cross-country team that consistently wins state championships.
Oh, yeah.
Their coach attributes their success to their simple yet profound hedgehog concept. We run best at the end.
They focus all their training and strategy on peaking at the right moment, and it works.
And it's not just about winning. The coach, when asked why she puts in all this effort, talks about how much she cares about the kids and the experience of being a part of something first class.
It's about creating something meaningful. Something that brings people together and inspires them to be their best.
Right.
And Collins argues that this search for meaningful work is at the heart of the drive for greatness, He found that the good to great leaders, they were deeply passionate about what they were doing. They weren't just chasing profits or power. They were building something that they truly believed in.
Like Ken Iverson at Nucor, who was driven by a desire to create a more egalitarian workplace.
Exactly. He wanted to build a company where everyone, from the CEO to the frontline workers, was valued and respected.
And you see the same passion in Darwin Smith's relentless pursuit of excellence at Kimberly-Clark. It wasn't just about making money, it was about building a truly great company. A company that would stand the test of time.
Right. For these leaders, the why of greatness wasn't about ego or ambition. It was about purpose, passion, and a deep desire to make a positive impact on the world.
It's inspiring, really. It makes you want to step back and ask yourself, why am I doing this? What's my deeper purpose?
And that's exactly what Collins wants us to do. He leaves us with this final thought-provoking question. If it's no harder to build something great than it is to settle for mediocrity, why wouldn't you go for greatness?
It's a powerful question. It challenges us to, consider our own aspirations and the legacy that we want to leave behind.
Yeah, as we wrap up this deep dive, I'm struck by how these concepts resonate on both, a personal and a professional level. They're not just about building great companies, they're about building great lives.
I completely agree. It's about finding your hedgehog concept, confronting your own brutal facts, and building your own flywheel, step by step, day by day.
And it's about asking yourself that fundamental question, why greatness? What is it about your work, your life, that makes you want to strive for something truly exceptional?
That's a great note to end on. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive into good to great. It's been a fascinating journey, and I hope it's inspired you to think differently about what it takes to achieve, lasting success.
Yeah, and remember, this is just the beginning. The journey to greatness is ongoing. It's a continuous process of learning, growth, and evolution.
So keep learning, keep questioning, and keep pushing for something truly great. Until next time.